Hey students, we are going to work on concrete patterns and writing explicit formulas. I really suggest that you print out the note sheets to go along with this screencast because I think that's going to really make a difference when you have to do these problems on your own. I really also encourage you to have already looked at the information regarding recursion and explicit formulas because that will make this a lot easier. So what we're going to do is take a look at what we're calling concrete patterns, and you can see how these different figures are related to each other. These numbers up at the top I refer to as frame numbers. So when we are talking about a series of diagrams, we call them the frames of the diagram. Sometimes when we just look at a list of numbers, we call that a sequence of numbers. So frames, term number, it's really all the same thing. So the first thing that you should do is pause this recording now and take a moment and try to draw the 4th and the 7th frames of this pattern. Alright, so hopefully you have already drawn the 4th and the 7th frames, and you can see that while we were paused, I put the 4th frame in. And the way I did the 4th frame is essentially I looked at the 3rd frame and I saw what was happening. So I went from 2 to 3 and then to 4 along the bottom, so I upped that and went to 5 on the next frame. And then the number that I'm high here was 1 and then 2 and then 3. So of course I made this one 4, and then I refer to this as a chimney. So my chimney was 1, 2, 3, 4. So the way that I drew the 4th frame is recursive in nature because I relied on what my 3rd frame looked like, and I just kept adding 1 to each of the dimensions to get to the 4th frame. I could do that to get to the 7th frame, but I would also then need to draw the 5th and the 6th frame, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to skip. So when I draw the 7th frame, I am going to look at it explicitly, which means I'm going to decide, all right, how many do I need across, how many do I need up, and how many do I need in the chimney, and I'm going to base that on the frame number that I'm on. So I examine what's going on up here, and I see in the 3rd frame, there are 4 across the bottom. In the 2nd frame, there are 3 across the bottom. And in the 1st frame, there's 2 across the bottom. So I'm seeing that the number of circles along the bottom is 1 more than the frame that I'm on. So I'm on the 7th frame. I need 8 circles across the bottom. So I'll draw those. All right, my next step is how many stacks of this do I need? So again, I go back to my picture and I look at it explicitly. So when I am on the 3rd frame, there was 3. 2nd frame, 2. 1st frame, 1. That tells me that the number of stacks is exactly the same as the frame number. So I need to repeat this 3 more times so that I get a total of 4. And I know sometimes these are tedious drawing. Of course, you've got the luxury that I don't know if you actually drew it completely or not. But I'll take the time to do that. Try to do it quickly. Alright, so now I've got 8 by 4. So if I'm counting how many circles, it's 32 so far, but I'm not done yet because I need to add the chimney. So again, I go back explicitly to look at the chimney. The chimney has 3 on frame 3, 2 on frame 2, 1 on frame 1. So it's looking to me as if I need 4 circles for my chimney. That adds 4 more onto my total, which then becomes 36. So like I just said, it gets tedious really fast to be drawing all of those circles and actually drawing the frames. So we want to take a shortcut and we want to do it explicitly. So we want to figure out how many circles are in the 19th frame without actually drawing the whole frame, but most students find drawing a quick sketch makes a really big difference, so I'm going to do that. So the sketch I'm going to do is, I'm just going to label, I'm going to say, all right, here's my bottom row. And I want to say, all right, how many circles are going to be in my bottom row in the 19th frame? And if you go back to that explicit pattern or formula that we were looking at, the number across the bottom is one more than the frame number. We're drawing the 19th frame here, so that has to be 20. And then we're kind of making a rectangle here. And we want to know how high does this stack get. So again, you go back, you take a look at what's that explicit pattern going on up there. And we found that the number of stacks is identical to the frame number. My frame number is 19. So there's going to be 19 high. So making this rectangle is going to be 19 times 20 circles. Right? And then I'm going to have a chimney, so I'm just going to draw the line for my chimney. And again, my chimney, if I look back to what's going on explicitly, the number of circles in my chimney is identical to my frame number. So that's 19. So if I want to find out how many circles there are, I can do some mathematics here rather than draw and count. So I'll do 19 times 20, and then I'll add on those 19 more for the chimney. So that's equal to 380, plus I add on that 19, and that's going to give me a grand total of 399. All right, we're going to do this one more time, but this time we are going to talk about the nth frame, and we're going to use this to build what we call an explicit formula. So this is an explicit formula, but it's using numbers, and I want an explicit formula that's using a variable, because if I write one with a variable, then I can plug in any number that I want. So I'm going to draw that sketch just like I did above. And I'm going to label the parts, just like I did above. But this time I'm going to say, hey, I'm on the nth frame. So when I look at the dimensions of my figure, then I need to say, okay, across the bottom it's going to be one more than the frame number. One more than the frame number is n plus 1. And the height here is going to be the frame number exactly. That's n. So there's going to be a bunch of circles here. Depending on what n is, that'll tell you exactly how many. To calculate how many, I would take n, and I'd multiply it by n plus 1. And then we can't forget our chimney here. Our chimney is exact as the frame number, so that is n. So when I write my explicit formula for how many circles are in the nth frame, I'm going to take n, multiply that by n plus 1. And then I'm going to add on n more. If you're not very good with algebra, you might want to stop right here and say, hey, that's my explicit formula, and I'm perfectly fine with that. If you are itching to, distribute this and simplify things, you can do that. If you think you're going to make mistakes in those steps, just don't do it, okay? But I'll multiply it out. So n times n is n squared. N times 1 is n. And then I'm adding another n on the end. I can combine like terms. N squared is a term onto itself. There's no other like terms. But n plus n is 2n. Right? So I can then say, hey, how could I use my formula to find the number of circles in the 32nd frame? Well, just say, all right, n is 32. So I do 32 squared plus 2 times 32. All right, and my grand total for that, I'm turning to my calculator because I'm terrible doing math in my head. Looks like 1,088. Right. If you stopped here, it would have been fine to plug a 32 in for each one of these ends and then simplify and get that answer.